Good evening and welcome to a live presentation of Priceless, a radio play presented by R5 Productions. Priceless is a world premiere written by Rob Rosello and directed by me, Nancy Ridgway. This radio drama is a fictionalization of Vincent Price's time in Maine during the filming of The Whales of August in the fall of 1986. The play was conceived in 2007 as a solo piece and written in one of the first playwriting workshops held at Primary Stages, an off-Broadway theater company whose School of Performing Arts was just getting off the ground. A lifelong fan of Vincent Price and the horror genre, Rosello eagerly began the research that led him to the creation of Priceless. Priceless was a semifinalist for both the Eugene O'Neill Playwriting Conference and the Princess Grace Foundation Playwriting Award in 2009. The quarantine of 2020 and subsequent pause in all live performances gave me the idea to ask Rob to adapt Priceless from a solo piece into the popular radio drama format that we here at R5 Productions found successful with our inaugural run of H.G. Wells's The Time Machine, and turn it into a multi-character piece that still honors Price's rich and extensive legacy. I hope you enjoy our presentation and hang around after the show for an introduction to the cast and crew as well as a short talkback. Thank you again for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Last night, I dreamt I died. When you reach a certain age or maturity, if you will, sleep and death can be synonymous and interchangeable, if not redundant. But last night I dreamt I had died. Answers were wrapped inside questions that fell like crisp foliage on its final descent. It is fitting, I suppose. It is the fall again, and I am filming a picture. "1986, Maine. Another off-Broadway play has found its way to the big screen. It's been in development for years on end. People say the cast is legendary. The casting, perhaps. The filming, maybe. Some of the temperaments, most definitely. But the cast, the cast is just old.
Betty Davis.
Lillian Gish.
And me, Vincent Price. Sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Betty Davis, Lillian Gish, and Vincent Price are all on a desert island. Betty Davis turns to Lillian Gish and says,
"Oh, dear God."
No, too easy. Well, I digress. The island is not deserted and actually quite lovely. I understand my role has been offered to several other Hollywood legends, but for one reason or another, I ended up holding the brass ring. The role certainly made the rounds. Apparently, everyone was considered. Well, every male actor over 80, and possibly even Kate Hepburn. Luckily for me, the woes of old age, ailments, death, or just plain kismet allowed me this little gem of a supporting role in my autumn. Perhaps it's the chill or the isolation of this lonely little island. I dreamt I died. I wish I could write it off as nerves, but I am thrilled to be working. And although I got along with Miss Davis,
Reunited on screen again after almost 50 years.
ours is not a friendship that is based on late-night food runs or gossip sessions.
50 years.
It has to be something else. Something else lingering on the fringes of my subconscious. The setting, the mood, even the time of year, all very Poe. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I at length found myself, as the shades of the evening drew on, within view of the melancholy house of Usher. Another folly of age. And again, I digress. But as in many a Poe tale, I have to wonder, what is the impending doom? And will I ever escape this Poe association? Not that I mind. I've done very well by him, and I would like to think in his posthumous glory he has fared rather well by me. But the dream, frightening, engaging, real, so very, very real. Even now, as I remember it, I get a chill from within that no autumnal wind can rival. Perhaps it was the first night in a strange room, in a strange bed. I've been put up in a lovely little bungalow, quite comfortable, if not charming, in fact, and although nothing about my environment betrayed an air of unease, something within me was poised for an uneasy turn. It began with sounds as I danced on the fringes of my own mind, a slow and luxurious waltz whose music I'd all but forgotten. There was darkness before there was light, and in that darkness a clock chimes 13. They say in death there is no sense of time, and I see a large hourglass atop a table. There is no sense of space, a large wooden door. There is no sense of loss, a closed wooden chest upon another table. No sense of loss. For you, perhaps. The room is not unlike many a set I've worked on over the years. I am neither young nor old, my prime, I suppose. And then that sound, familiar, common, nondescript, yet just beyond my grasp. And then it comes again, and again, and again. Silence, at last, a welcome friend, but one that arrives, no doubt, with an agenda. The sands of the hourglass pass before me, and I, helpless to do anything. It was then that I see them, spread out before me like petals from an abandoned bloom. The clippings. As an actor, reviews are loathed little droppings left behind in the wake of your accomplishments, yet we all scramble to scoop them up and catalog the successes and perceived failures. So is it such a stretch that my fancy for reading obituary should seem so dark and morbid? After all, aren't they just the final review of one's life and accomplishments? So imagine my surprise to find this bevy of homages before me. And imagine my greater curiosity when I see that the obituaries are mine. Eager to see how I have been received, I immediately plunge in.
King of modern horror movies, London Times. Evil elegance that made Vincent Price a classic film character, St. Petersburg Times.
My favorite, without question, are the kind words penned by People magazine, who generously hail me as
The Gable of Gothic.
I think by all counts we have a smash hit on our hands. But the reality of the praise carries a much higher and sobering truth. The reviews are still obituaries, which means I am dead. As if looking for more answers to the cascade of questions that flood my mind, I move from the steady stream of the hourglass to the small chest across the room. Perhaps it holds a treasure trove of answers that are more precious than gold. But of course, it is locked. Who is playing this cruel and relentless joke at my expense? Who has the nerve? How has this happened? And as I careen about spinning so dangerously close to being out of control, I realize for the first time since my arrival in the room that I am not alone.
Vincent Price.
Present.
Vincent Leonard Price, Jr.
It sounds as if I were on trial.
Born May 6th, 1911. Died.
No! That infernal sound, maddening, all-consuming, and maddening. Show yourself at once. Where am I? Is this my final resting place? Is this where I am interred?
Death is uncertainty.
And are you death?
No, I am uncertainty.
That is no answer.
The answer is in the verse.
So speak it once and let me question the answers from whence you came.
Slipped away like April snow, a heavenly bow to never know. A fleeting fancy found on high, dare not to silence a poet's cry. For in the chamber of temptation's air resides the key to game so fair.
That noise, make it stop. For nothing more than reason restored. Please, I beg, make it stop.
That is the sound of history being torn away. Pages of the past being ripped out of a book no longer read, a story no longer told, a memory already forgotten.
It's not my time to... They are not my pages to tear away, the fleeting words beyond my grasp and lost. They are as I've become. Come back, come back, come back. And it was then I plunged without regard, without regret. I leap, I fall, and it is then I land fully awake. wet as if a summer rain had soaked me, alone and silent, save my labored breath and the pounding of a heart, very much alive, very much alone. What does this riddle mean? It keeps me up until the night gives in to day, and about me the room comes into view. My new home away from home. Losing the hope of finding answers, I turn to distraction and comfort in the mundane. The necessary ritual of the weary traveler, unpacking. Preparing for the worst, yet ever the optimist, I brought both short pants and sweaters. It does seem, as is the curse of even the most seasoned explorer, that the element of surprise still exists when the suitcase is at last empty. The forgotten items. The unlikely victim this time? Socks. I think I'd seen a small store upon arrival on the ferry. Well, a perfect excuse to tour the island and all it may have to offer. A lovely assortment of homes, a post office, a charming one-room schoolhouse. That demands further exploration. And the general store, and that, it seems, is all. Not quite sure what I expected, really. But somehow I am certain this is not it. At least it isn't completely deserted. And filming is poised to begin. At least I can find distraction there. I hope. So into the general store I go in search of my socks. Smaller than I expected and clearly past the peak season, I'm disappointed to discover no such notions count, or even the hint of one. So captured in my intent that I do not hear the approach of another.
I know you.
Turning to see the person attached to the squeal, I see a squat woman as round as she is tall, with a most unusual shock of hair, curly and tight and perfectly asymmetrical. Something told me it was meant to be chic and in vogue, yet I couldn't help but think it to be slightly unbalanced and, as a result, just off kilter. I resisted the urge to turn my own head to the side to even her out. Instead, I braced for the impending barrage.
I know you. You're one of the movie people.
As if we were a species freshly discovered from the moons of Jupiter.
Rosemary Bradshaw's second cousin. I'd know that nose anywhere.
She continues to look me up and down as if I am Gulliver and I've just washed ashore in Lilliput.
You're awfully tall for a Bradshaw. You must be one of their relations from Providence. They sure do grow 'em big down south like that.
Well, actually, I was born and raised in St. Louis.
Oh, well, anywho, welcome to Cliff Island.
Thank you for the very kind welcome to the island, Mrs.
Oh, Stimple. Miss Polly Stimple. Not Ms. either. Nothing fancy like that out here. And not ashamed of it one little bit. And it's our pleasure to have you here, believe you me. Not much else going on this time of year. Anywho.
You don't happen to know where I might procure a pair of socks?
Well, this ain't no Woolworths, if that's what you're thinking.
Perhaps I will just ask the wardrobe mistress to bring some from the mainland when I finally meet her. I glance about and look for a means of escape. I spot a phone in the back of the store. Excuse me, I must call my daughter and let her know I've arrived safely.
Well, anywho, welcome to Cliff Island.
Why on earth did I say this? I'm not even sure myself. A dozen other people I could have mentioned. Why Tory? But then again, why not? I realize it's a pay phone and I've no change or calling card. I decide to call collect.
Hello? Yes, yes, I'll accept the charges. Really, Father? Calling collect?
I suppose that makes this a low-budget film? Well, I wanted to call and let you know I arrived safely yesterday.
Good flight?
Oh, yes, the flight was pleasant and uneventful. It's been a long stretch since our last call.
It has.
Well, let's try to speak soon, when I have more time and more to report. I'm not even sure she heard me. It was going to be a long couple of weeks. I suddenly feel very weary and realize I have every right, as I did not make it back to bed after my unsettling dream. Oh, the dream. Although only fragments remain, I have the uneasy sense it was not complete, and I have more of that journey left to unfold. Upon returning to my little cottage, I see that someone is waiting for me. A young woman with spiky hair and a lopsided grin that I am certain was as regular a feature on her as the untied shoelace of her battered sneakers. Why, hello!
Socks.
My friends call me Vincent.
What?
And they are deliciously white and so very long. Perfect if I was draped in tennis whites or a basketball jersey.
They said socks.
Miss Pruitt, I presume?
Yeah. My friends call me Connie. My dad Connor runs the ferry, but you can call me Connie.
Miss
Or whatever.
Pruitt, it is. The film's producer and director said they were to hire a young aide to help with my Russian accent for the film.
Yeah.
A protege! How flattering. And you speak Russian? Excellent! I'm never one to turn away a helping hand. But if you don't mind, Miss Pruitt, I am quite tired, and I would like to catch maybe a nap.
It's like 10 in the morning.
How completely doddering I must sound. But before I can even attempt a retraction, she's gone. As if she was never even there. And so I return to my room and eventually drift off to sleep. Sleep, but no dreams. And this pattern continues for the rest of this day and the next, restless, listless, and most definitely dreamless, and so I sleep. But I do not dream, and my bizarre encounter is all but forgotten. Filming has begun, and almost right from the quick, battle lines are clearly drawn by the leading ladies. I try my best to steer clear and retire to my room whenever possible. I turn to reading as a source of escape, a vessel that can perhaps even take me back to those elusive shores from whence I came. It doesn't take much for sleep in old age to seduce you. I've long since surrendered myself to this reality. It is the dreaming that is now more elusive than ever. Miss Pruitt, it seems I've all but exhausted my reading materials packed for this work period.
And here you go.
Miss Pruitt produces a neat little bundle of magazines tied up with string like a perfect little package for my reading pleasure. Expecting to find a wide assortment of periodicals and journals alike, I am surprised to find a rather extensive collection of People magazines from the past year or so. The labels confirm my suspicions, all courtesy of young Miss Constance Pruitt herself. The next day or so, filming continues, but otherwise bleak days. A fog that isn't ready to relinquish its grasp on the horizon despite the insistence of the dawn. Filming has completed for the morning, and lunch is being served. The filming this morning has involved a particularly touching scene between Betty and Lillian. It was Lillian's simplicity and elegance on screen and in the moment that had seized the hearts of cast and crew alike.
Miss Gish, you have just given me the perfect close-up.
She should. She invented them.
It is no wonder, then, when she turns her attention to me and the reading material I hold so firmly in my grasp. Everyone on this picture quickly learned that the frail appearance by no means purported a frail mind. She has the eyes of a hawk and ears of a bat. Not literally, of course, but that depends on whom you ask. She sometimes acts like she can't hear herself burp through a scene on set, but it becomes apparent, and rather quickly, there are no accidents at the hands of Miss Davis. Just victims. And I am up on the butcher block this afternoon. At first she says nothing, but I know she's seen the reading material I've brought on set. It's also clear she's given it and me an equally careful and critical glance, too deliberate to be casual and too casual to go unnoticed. She is calculating her words, having formed an opinion in the time it takes a normal human to bat an eye.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Television will kill you. In the end, it always has, and in the end, it always will.
You don't say.
You said something, Mr. Price?
I rather enjoyed my time on the small screen, the $64,000 challenge, Batman, my recent and beloved time as host of Mystery.
You don't say.
And didn't you take the plunge not too long ago?
I was spared the shame of weekly television by the first of 2 debilitating strokes, for which I still remain thankful and grateful.
Some find it enjoyable, even dare I say, favorable.
Has-beens and never-weres.
Lana Turner, Cesar Romero, Ava Gardner, even Jane Wyman.
Had Janie stayed put, she would be our first lady, and not presiding as matriarch of a primetime melodrama set in a grape-infested painting place.
Maybe we should, go get lunch, yeah?
Ugh. TV is second only to dismal horror films shown in double feature hell.
My mistake, because your turn in Burnt Offerings was really Shakespeare with a supernatural spin, minus the crackling cauldron and its cackling denizens.
Why is she taking off her shoe?
Quickly, Miss Pruitt, get the Yankees on the phone. They're simply desperate for a new pitcher.
Incoming!
I find it unthinkable to ask a woman of my
experience
in stockinged feet to navigate across such a harsh wooden floor.
Miss Pruitt, I think that's your cue.
She scares me.
Me too.
Now what?
Another crew member, with far more strength and epic bravery than the rest of us could collectively muster, quickly collected the tiny size 5 projectiles and cautiously presented at the feet of their impatient owner. Shoes again in place, Miss Davis leaves the set and so concludes filming for the day. Left with time again on my hands and a smile on my lips, I find my way back to my room to read. Left no time to ponder or fret. I drift off to a fitful and welcomed sleep, and once again the clock chimes 13. I am dreaming. There is no angst this time. That damnable ripping sound is no more. And again, there they sit, the hourglass, the locked door, the chest atop the table. The sands of the hourglass are once again slowly draining down to some ominous end. But they seem to have begun again, affording me the luxury of time I do not seem to have. It is then I notice there is an addition to the room, a painting. It's Albert Bierstadt's Storm Clouds, a small oil painting by the 19th century landscape artist. Last I'd seen it, my second wife Mary and I had presented it to Jacqueline Kennedy to be added to the White House art collection. August of 1962, it was approved and placed in the White House. September 1963, I received a letter stating that the little painting had been placed by the president at the end of his bed, so it was the first thing he saw in the morning, and he was crazy about it. Then the news came 2 months later of his death. I can only wonder why it is here with me now. I know that in this moment, I am dead. Have I too passed those delicate clouds to some great beyond? But as I stare at it, I see something. Something is amiss with the painting. A fleeting fancy found on high dare not to silence a poet's cry. The words of the rhyme, all but lost to me the other night, now come flooding back. The painting, of course, but what has changed about it? There is something trapped in the canvas, held hostage by the gentle brushstrokes and the unsuspecting allure of the heavenly bodies. From within the canvas cries a secret waiting to be released. No, I am not mistaken. There is something in the canvas. What could it be? Had it always been there? And it is suddenly clear. It is the sound of canvas being unceremoniously ripped to shreds. The answer is simple, but what is the question? I press my fingers again to the painted surface. It's again a familiar sensation. I can almost grasp, if not the instrument trapped within, but the purpose for it. A key. A key. Somehow, some way, there is a key trapped below the surface, hiding behind the clouds and encased in a layer of oil and canvas. The answer is simple. The task is clear. Forgive me, dear friend. A fleeting fancy found on high dare not to silence a poet's cry. I hold in my hands a shiny brass key. I attempt to use it on the wooden door. Nothing. I turn to the wooden chest. A click. The lock released. As I open the chest, the loss of the painting is not even a memory, much less a concern. From within, I see a sole scrap of paper, one that simply bears the name of Oscar Wilde. Why are my hands shaking so? Do they know something I do not? The words are unmistakable. The verse is as familiar as my own name.
Mr. Price?
Dare not to silence a poet's cry.
Mr. Price, are you okay?
Dare not to silence a poet's... Oh, yes. Yes, Miss Pruitt. You can come in. It was nothing, just a bad dream, I suppose. Miss Pruitt, what time is it?
It's Thursday?
I think I make you nervous. Miss Pruitt, you have no need to be frightened of me. I don't bite, as a general rule, and I don't throw things.
Your painting fell.
And so it has, but it isn't the storm clouds that had been in my dream. The small oil painting that has fallen off the wall in my room is something entirely different. Dark, harsh colors, jarring and disturbing, yet undeniably appealing. Miss Pruitt, I assume it was a local artist who created it and perhaps even placed it in the room, him or herself?
I did it. You really like it? Oh, I can't believe it. Vincent Price likes my painting. I was hoping you'd notice it. I mean, when I heard Vincent Price was coming here to make a movie,
No need to worry, Miss Pruitt. Your secret is safe with me. I have to confess, you're a young lady of many talents. A talented painter, motion picture aficionado, fluent in Russian, and who knows how many other languages. Miss Pruitt, I knew from day one you weren't brought in to help with my Russian dialect, especially since your Russian accent sounds something akin to a German accent with a slight southern drawl, which in itself is something of a commendable, if not admirable, feat. So now the question lingers, why did they bring you into the production? Ah, oh my, could it be that perhaps our producers and our director have no faith in their aging cast as to recall their learned lines on a consistent basis? I can assure you I hold nothing against you and even feel a little bit flattered at the extra attention and the lengths at which they went to conceal their ruse. My only advice, and pay close attention, my dear, tread very carefully when around the resident Oscar winner with this little nugget of knowledge under your cap. She can't move too terribly fast, but her aim, like her sharp tongue, never misses its mark. Miss Pruitt, if you would be so kind, could you locate a telephone for me?
Calling Mrs. Price?
Coral? Oh, dear God, no. It's still practically the middle of the night on the West Coast. I'm calling a gentleman friend of mine here on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., actually. If you would be so kind as to find that phone for me, I would be terribly thankful. And please, try and find one with some semblance of privacy. The call is something of a personal nature. And Miss Pruitt, thank you for checking in on me.
Follow me, Mr. Price.
Good morning. I know it's early. It's me. It's me, Bink. I've wanted to call for some time now since I know when we last spoke it wasn't ideal. I miss you. Our conversations, they were like a lullaby for my ears only. I cherished them, as I still do you. That's what Coral couldn't understand. Can't understand. Please, please forgive me. A friendship, it's a love that penetrates one's soul, and to uproot it with such sudden and fierce disregard. Oh, now I'm rambling like a silly old man. I'm in Maine on Cliff Island making a picture. The sun sets. It's worth the price of admission. At least a train ticket and ferry ride. I do sleep, but I don't rest. Perhaps if I heard you, if only for one last time, then perhaps I could finally at last think about it. Please. Finding me won't be a problem. I hope you know. I hope you know I never left. Goodbye for now, my cherished. My cherished friend. You have my love. You always have. And you always will.
Quiet on the set. Camera rolling. Rolling.
And action.
An easy day of filming ahead. Where else but in the cinema can you get paid to quietly go about your business and spend the afternoon fishing? A genuine delight. Also a perfect time to reflect as the director patiently captures moments on film. Careful, quiet moments. and I am left to my own thoughts as the cameras roll. In 1977, I appeared in a wonderful little play by John Gay called Diversions and Delights. It was a one-man show where I played Oscar Wilde at the end of his life. We toured the country, eventually culminating in an all too brief Broadway engagement. It was the opening night in San Francisco, July 11th, 1977, that I met you, my Lord Alfred. I saw you and every sunset after, heard your voice on every breeze that caressed my face, felt your warmth in the heat of the sun and the gentle kiss of moonlight. It was this that Coral raged against. She saw it instantly, and she was jealous, not of any physical encounter we may or may not have had. No, she was jealous of what she no longer had with me. The wonder that I had now, with you, that love which had no name, finally did. Yours.
Cut. Hold.
Adjusting the angle and the cameras, we take a break. I continue to fish. Why interrupt my rhythm now? And there are actual fish biting. There was some initial concern that it would ultimately have to be staged for the sake of the camera, but not today. I continue on my silent journey as they reset and reload. At this exact moment, I couldn't be more relaxed. I've carved a career out of playing monsters and villains and tragic figures, the role of the villain that so many adore, yet reject. Why? They see too much of their own reflection in that creature before them. Some of the greatest roles I've had, villains, one and all, they were misunderstood. Perhaps it was because they loved too deep, too hard, loved others in a way that could never be understood, just viewed as wrong, monstrous in its intensity, grotesque in its stature.
Ready, Mr. Price?
Always, and please call me Vincent.
Anything you say, Mr. Vincent.
Quiet on the set. Camera rolling. Rolling.
And action.
Again, the cameras jump to life and I go about my business, this business of make-believe and magic. My Lord Alfred, you saw me not as a monster, nor was I an actor, artist, husband, or father. You saw me as a man, one who could love and be loved, and so you did. And for once in my life, so did I. And just as quick.
Cut. And print.
My work for the day is done. Before retiring back to my room or perhaps a new spot along the shoreline, I decide to join the cast and crew for lunch. Even the incomparable Miss Davis seems to be in good spirits today and jokes with us over lunch. Miss Davis, would you care to join me with rod and reel later? It is terribly relaxing.
A foolish pastime for men, much like the nonsensical pursuit of knitting is for women. I do it for therapy for my hands, so the doctor says. I like to think of it as sheer boredom, but with no prescription necessary.
All in all, a very pleasant day. I opt for the promise of rest and perhaps even a well-deserved nap, and retire to my room. Miss Pruitt, did you happen to drop off this telegram on my chair?
The mail hasn't come yet. I don't know who left that telegram for you.
Oh, Miss Pruitt! Miss Pruitt! This is far better news than any mail delivery could even begin to convey.
Bink, stop. Received your message. Stop. Quite a surprise. Stop. DC is busy. Stop. Maine must be lovely. Stop. Speak soon. Stop.
He's coming here. I can hardly believe it. Let me not jinx it by questioning it. Come now, I think there is cause for celebration. Shall we perhaps take a little jaunt to the mainland? I think we step out on the town, as it were, my young friend, and enjoy a little of the local color, and I would be honored with you as my guide.
So it's good news, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, Miss Pruitt. This brief little note is wonderful news, wonderful and much needed news indeed. Perhaps there's been a reason after all these restless nights with riddled slumber. I think the hour is at hand. Come now, my young friend. I think a trip to the mainland and share in the magic of the silver screen. I do believe when we first arrived, I did see a small theater in town, and unless the fare has changed since then, I also think the featured movie is a remake of all things of one of my films. I understand they've changed virtually everything save the title, but I must confess I do secretly love the new tagline, "Be afraid. Be very afraid." Such more ominous than our original, "Help me! Help me!" That is, if you don't mind the company of a senior citizen like myself.
Mind? Mind? Of course not. Helene and Andre believed in the sacredness of life. They wouldn't harm anything, not even a fly.
Bravo, Miss Pruitt. Bravo. I fancy myself many things, but the title I never thought myself worthy of, Prude. But how films have changed. To think Herb Marshall and I laughed take after take after take in our filming of the Fly finale, that tiny animatronic figure, and the now infamous help me being played over and over again. It really was too much. Take after take. We laughed to the point of distraction, actually. And while I marvel at all the bells and whistles of the modern cinema, what happened to the mystery and illusion of suggested horror? I've lived this long on this earth, and I think I would have been content to depart this mortal coil having never seen a 6-foot fly to vomit on its prey and then eat it alive. Where is the mystery, the suspense, the restraint? The questions still linger as Miss Pruitt and I depart the theater, and the ferry leisurely carries us back to the island. Miss Pruitt's enthusiasm for our impromptu excursion all but eclipsed the film itself. For both of us, I think. To my surprise, there was a modest amount of fuss placed on our appearance at the cinema.
They freaked out.
They certainly did.
They took our picture.
Several.
And escorted us to our seats.
By the manager, no less.
Oh, it totally was.
Indeed, Miss Pruitt, it totally was. The evening, all in all, was a joy. The stars tonight are breathtaking. The real ones, the true ones, the ones that never fade. I have to ponder, as we slowly move beneath this heavenly canopy of light, the lifetime of a star. Remote, brilliant, hypnotic, yet enduring, strong, irreplaceable. The movie has had more of an impact on me than I thought. How many years will pass before some of my work is all but lost, possibly never to be rediscovered? In my lifetime alone, I'm already seeing remakes of my films. How long before they make remakes of the remakes? It's maddening, really, if you stop to think about it. And we have docked, smooth, barely a tap. Now that is talent and a true professional. Thank you again, Miss Pruitt, for your humble kindness and generosity. And young Miss Pruitt, until the morrow, I am clearly avoiding the inevitable. And I know if it doesn't happen tonight, then tomorrow night, or the night after that, or the one after that, dread wraps its icy grip around my shoulders and holds me close as a lover. I'm chilled. Yet there is no breeze to speak of tonight. Chilled from within. Sleep is inevitable. The dream an eventuality. I should rally against it, take charge, but to my surprise, night surrenders today, and no dreams, no haunting visions, no tortured symbols left for me to decipher. The days pass without event. I begin to relax again. So relieved am I that sleep has again become a cherished respite. I sway, I drift, I fall, and I hear the sound of a clock chiming 13. And again I am there. Sleep, a rather deep one, lost in the landscape of my own mind, trapped, a prisoner of my own making. But this time the rules have changed, the stakes are higher. And this time, the sands of the hourglass have all but run out. I try to move. I cannot. Paralyzed? Is this a dream or is this real? Fears of the failure of the human body suddenly loom. Worse than the torture of 1,000 deaths is the horror of being trapped in one's own body. I struggle, I plead, I try to move again. Still the same. Where am I? What has happened? I open my mouth to scream for help. Silence. Again, stillness. Silence. And in the silence, the game begins anew. In the truest order of chaos known as dreams, I cannot move. I know it, but for some reason I cannot see it. Now I sound like the infuriating riddles that haunt me. I'm seeing all this from outside my own body, a spectacle of my own life.
Welcome to our feature presentation. In your own house of wax, who would stand in display? Who would be your Joan of Arc or Marie Antoinette?
My children, my very own house of illusion and wonder, full of images from the past. My past.
Oh, so many to choose.
Prince Albert, surely from Victoria Regina. My Broadway bow. Robert Wade in Service Deluxe. My first talkie. The villainous Barker in the 10 Commandments. Professor Henry Jarrett, of course. The misunderstood mad genius whose passion for his art leads to his downfall in his very own house of wax. And in my chamber of horrors, all the greats, the abominable Dr. Phibes, Egghead, the tortured Roderick Usher, tragic and beautiful.
Ah, the fragile mind of an actor. Your museum of wax, in a life of such staggering and diverse achievement, you would stock with characters. Not the living, but the creations of make-believe. None of your wives, your children, dear friends, or even Washington, D.C.
You tricked me.
No more than I tricked you, Bink, about your sight or inability to walk. And you wonder why your sleep has become your personal chamber of horrors. Oh, foolish Bink.
You have no right to call me by that name.
You are in control, Bink. You always have been.
From within the wooden box, I find a scrapbook. All this over a scrapbook?
Memories are not meant to be pressed into a book and forgotten.
All my successes and failures, neatly catalogued, bound in leather with gilded pages.
And what memories do these invoke, beyond the flash of the camera and the images frozen in time?
1946 shock. It might as well have been called schlock.
Still living in the land of make-believe.
1941 Hudson's Bay with Gene Tierney.
Still living in the land of make-believe.
What do you want me to say? 1946, the year my mother died, and in her death I was hardly set free. 1941, Hudson's Bay. We began filming only weeks after Barrett was born. 1958, The Fly. Also the year I was elected president of the UCLA Arts Council. 1963, Rage of the Buccaneers, filmed in Italy. Victoria was conceived on location. 1972, Theater of Blood, the movie where I met Coral. And so I continue to read and rip and remember and tear, and before long my work of the past 50 years lay about my feet, the memories of the past 50 years still a murmur on my lips and fresh in my mind. I gazed down at the book, The Whales of August, freshly torn from the binding and clutched in one hand, ready to be tossed away as all the others before it. Without thought, I flipped through the pages that remain, and while there are many, the pages are blank. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore.
Mr. Price?
While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
Mr. Price, it's me, Connie.
Do come in, Miss Pruitt. And good morning to you, too.
To some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more.
Well, I suspect by now you've either grown accustomed to my foolish folly, Miss Pruitt, or you've overcome your fear of me and think of me as nothing short of daft. In any case, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is Saturday, is it not?
Yes.
And is the mail in today?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Do you want me to?
Oh, no. I think I shall venture to the post office myself and retrieve it. I should take advantage of this lovely little island while I still have it to enjoy. But thank you in any case, Miss Pruitt, for offering. And otherwise, my day is free of any scheduled shooting and I'm left to my own devices?
It's Saturday, so yes.
Saturday again, is it? Excellent. Perhaps we can lunch on the beach and further discuss our cinematic field trip from last weekend at some greater length.
Cool.
Miss Pruitt, do you dream? Do you have dreams? What is your dream?
My dream is to someday be you. They'll call me the Queen of Horror.
Well, thank you, Miss Pruitt. Lunch at noon?
Dude, cool.
And with that, she was gone as quickly as she had come. And I was alone again, and yet not at all. The first order of business, the post office. To my surprise, a pleasant little bundle awaits me, including an envelope written in Coral's hand, fan letters, no doubt, and a rather sizable one at that. A pleasant and welcome sight. As I weigh my options as to where I can indulge myself with this burgeoning postal delight, I see the only other people out and about at this early morning hour. Two women who, at a distance and rapidly growing closer, look as much alike as they could be twins. It is the effervescent and chatty Miss Stimple from my first day on the island. She's joined by someone whose resemblance is so similar it is striking and has to be a relation of some variety.
Why, good morning. Good morning. Can you believe this weather? We'll be begging for a day like this in a month's time. You mark my words.
You don't say.
Oh, this is my eldest brother's youngest daughter. He lives in Portland along with the rest of our family. I'm the youngest of 8, you know. Marcy here is the youngest of my brother's 6, and we were born in the same hospital on the same night, exactly 60 minutes apart. Marcy's 1 hour older than me, if you can believe it.
And here you don't look a minute older. Well, tell me more about the one-room schoolhouse, a lovely little piece of forgotten Americana.
Oh, well, you should go on over and look. It's quite adorable. Our second cousin is the teacher, and she would be thrilled to know one of the movie people popped by for a visit.
If you don't think she'd mind, I'd love to. But it is Saturday. Won't it be locked?
Not on Cliff Island.
Thank you, ladies. Perhaps, well, please don't let me keep you from your day.
He's one of the movie people. I didn't know he would be so tall. Everyone in the Bradshaw family is so terribly short.
And with that, they are gone. I hesitate before entering the little temple of education, but I am so very curious to see this relic from simpler days gone by. The door is open as they had said it would be. I find a chair by the desk in the front and sit with my bundle. The pile in my hands has become more cumbersome, and I set it on the desk. I sift through the loose letters, and it is then I see it. How had I missed this one before? It was pressed in between 2 letters from Coral. The envelope, small but rich in texture, as was the stationery inside, I am sure. The hand that wrote it as familiar as my own, the script unmistakable. My hands are trembling as I hold the sole letter in them, almost unable to grasp it, but terrified to let it go. I even run my hand over the creamy exterior as if to verify that it is real. The postmark verifies everything. The letter has come in his place. Of this I was certain. This letter from Washington, D.C.
My dearest Bink, to say I have started this letter no less than a dozen times is by no means an exaggeration, nor is it a stretch to confess that by this point in the previous attempts, I've already deemed it inadequate and tossed it in the wastebasket. This is my final attempt at my final letter. Without question, your call came as a surprise. It was not unwelcome in its timing or sentiment, nor was it taken lightly. I've now listened to it more times than I should care to admit, but who, at our age, has the time to mince words or play coy? I miss you, Bink. I miss so very many things about the time we spent together. Oh, I could prattle on for volumes about it, but I shan't. I cannot. To dwell so deeply in the memories of our time together would not do justice to you or any of what we had. Instead, I look at what we still have. I see you, my dear friend. Everywhere I go, in everyone and everything I see you. Not too long ago, we received a Jackson Pollock on loan at the museum. The day it arrived, I spent no less than 2 solid hours looking at it, studying it, drinking it in. I found a single brushstroke, soft in tone, but so clearly strong and dynamic in its purpose and intent. That lone mark left by the artist, in that single brushstroke, I saw you. And so I did for every day after. I made a point of it. But the day has come, as I knew it would, when the painting has to leave our museum. And I wept. I sat in my office this very morning and openly sobbed for how long I do not know. Even as I write this, they are already crated it up and it's being loaded into a truck to transport to its next destination. So poetic, ironic, and fitting that your call came today as I mourn the loss of this true and inspired work of art. But I always knew that the painting was not ours. It had to go. It had to move on, be seen and enjoyed and loved by many, many others. I felt a sudden damning wave of guilt wash over me at this realization. Who was I to deny the world this treasure? Instead of mourning this loss, I should rejoice. I should celebrate and cherish the time I did have this masterpiece in my presence.
I enter the charming schoolhouse for a taste of nostalgia, a remembrance of days gone by. I emerge, wish fulfilled. I cannot remember nor recall much before, and now I see the world with different eyes, a new perspective. I walk until I reach the water's edge. I stop, eyes closed. A breath, a moment. The world about me comes into focus. The water is calming, mighty, majestic, gentle, yet still a force of nature with which to be reckoned. Speaking of forces of nature, I see a lone figure hobbling down the beach towards me, bundled up as to resemble a wool-clad tick about ready to burst on a moment's notice or a gentle prod. As the figure approaches, I can see it is Betty, my mighty and majestic screen mate. Fancy meeting you here.
Yes, I escaped that cell of a room they have me in. The hound should be nipping at my heels any moment.
She was in good spirits, so it seemed. I was in luck. Betty is dressed in more layers than the day or weather mandated necessary, but who am I to question? She sits down on the bow of an upturned boat abandoned on the shore. She has left me a spot, and I gesture, and she nods. I sit. So far, so good. We stare out at the gentle waters without saying a word for a few minutes. Betty nudges me with her well-padded elbow, but I can still feel the sharp edge of her bone prodding me. Out of the corner of my eye, I see she is offering me the flask from which she has just generously sipped. That stuff'll kill you.
No, that won't, but this cigarette will. If you're going to be bad, you might as well be really bad. Mel, bring bad news?
No, just some fan mail.
I'm talking about the one you opened. May I?
A letter from an old friend.
I see. Well now. Contrary to any rumor you may have heard, I turned down the role of Scarlett O'Hara when Selznick was making Gone with the Wind. I know you were up for the picture too and lost out to Leslie Howard. Selznick wanted me for the movie, and Jack Warner wouldn't allow it without Errol Flynn coming along for the ride. I objected. He wasn't right for the part of Rhett. You were wrong for the part of Ashley, and he was wrong for Rhett. The stars were not in alignment, literally and figuratively. It just wasn't right. The stars were not in alignment then, and they are not in alignment now. Period.
Not right. Not right? Do you know what's not right? My daughter has the courage to come out to me while I fear and worry for her. It's for her happiness and well-being. any parent's concerned for their child. She's poured her heart out to me. How can I advise my daughter and counsel her when I lack strength myself? But even that, so very close, she and I are close, were close. I have such an urge to call her, beg her forgiveness. She understands and understands me. But we have drifted. Once again, I reprise my role of the coward. She and Coral don't get along. I don't think Coral cares for her very much.
Coral doesn't care for anyone, does she?
When did we start spending so much time looking back and forget to look forward?
I never look back. I never regret. Old age ain't for sissies.
I think I should have that printed up on little cards or perhaps a T-shirt.
Why not? I have it embroidered on a pillow.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Is that your girl Friday? She looks like a pack mule lumbering down the beach.
It is indeed our young Miss Pruitt. What on earth are you carrying in those bundles?
You ordered lunch on the beach, Mr. Price. Oh, and you too, Miss Davis, if you'd like to join us, maybe?
Gish is filming today. She may very well need you to spoon-feed her the lines again.
You don't like Miss Gish very much, do you?
Years ago, we had a small bulldog, for the children, of course. And that bulldog, no matter what I did, no matter how much attention I gave her, she always would glare at me with a mix of contempt and disdain. I now realize I was being gished by that bitter little dog. If she tries that nonsense with you, Constance, my advice is to swat her on the behind with a rolled-up newspaper, toss her a biscuit, and call it a day. And by all means, please do give my regards to our blessed First Lady of the American cinema.
She punctuated that last statement with a flick of her cigarette that was so utterly perfect I could do nothing more than smile and applaud her performance. Despite her previous boldness, all Miss Pruitt could do was nod.
Well, I'm off. Enjoy the feast.
Betty shuffled back up the beach and eventually out of sight.
You can't leave Maine without a good old-fashioned clam bake on the beach.
And so it is, Miss Pruitt, so it is. You see, out there, how the moon casts its silver coins along the shore? There is a treasure that can never be spent. It is my favorite line from the movie. Tonight we are shooting my final scene of the picture. Lillian is luminescent as usual, perhaps even more so tonight. In the distance on the fringes of the collective crew, and just on the edge of the shadows, I see another figure, insulated against the evening chill, and again well padded. I see my drinking buddy from the beach. Her head is encircled by a halo of thin smoke, and I can just barely see the burning tip of her cigarette. The smoke hangs above her, shrouding her, protecting her, yet now looking like a regal crown. How fitting. She takes a step into the light, but for a moment she cocks a well-painted eyebrow. This lone gesture has launched a career and identified an icon. I bow and nod. And as quickly and quietly as she appeared, she retreats into the shadows and is gone. The art of the graceful exit. Miss Pruitt is on set tonight. She gives me the thumbs-up gesture. I assume this means I'm knocking him dead. And I return the thumbs-up gesture. I reset on the porch of this lovely little house where we have been filming.
Ready, Vincent, dear?
Always.
One more time, ladies and gentlemen.
Quiet on the set. Camera rolling. Rolling.
And action.
The next morning, good morning.
It's early.
I hope I didn't.
You're fine.
We wrapped filming yesterday.
Oh, heading home?
Tomorrow, I would love to see you. You've been on my mind.
I'd love to see you too.
Wonderful.
What about Carl?
Oh, you leave Carl to me. You are my daughter, after all, not hers. Someone should remind her of that more often.
Are you volunteering?
Absolutely not. I'll call again when I get home. We can catch up then. You make me so very proud, Tori. You really do. I love you. Speak soon.
Good morning, Mr. Price.
Goodbyes are far too permanent, Miss Pruitt, far too definitive. I do not believe in them. We, of course, have our opening in Portland next year. I trust I shall see you there. Oh, Miss Pruitt, your command of the language. I don't even need to turn to see you are nodding. Come now, Miss Pruitt. How can I miss you when I shall think of you every time I wear these shockingly white tube socks? Of course, I shall have to find the proper occasion to wear them, perhaps join an octogenarian basketball league. I do have the advantage of height. Now that is better, Miss Pruitt. I felt it unfair that I had something by which to remember you. It seemed only fair you have something by which to remember me. There, on the table.
For me?
Yes, for you. And yes, my copy of the film script, signed.
My dear Miss Pruitt, a woman who limits her interests limits her life. The more specialized her activities, the more restricted her mind becomes. For me, the theater, the film, is one art among many. There's a whole world on stage and screen, but a bigger one off them. To the future First Lady of Fright. Best wishes, Vincent Price.
I do believe we are packed, Miss Pruitt. I then spot a bag that is clearly not mine. It's propped up against my luggage, an attaché of sorts, flat and zippered like an artist's portfolio. I look to Miss Pruitt, who is still wiping her eyes, but manages a smile and nod. I carefully unzip the case and slowly open it, unsure yet eager to discover the contents. Albert Bierstadt, Storm Clouds, the painting from my dream, the painting President Kennedy loved so. When? And then I see it, small and unobtrusive, in the lower corner, the artist's signature and the date, Constance Pruitt, 1986. It is suddenly through a mist. I now see this splendor. I also realize it is a mist of my own creation. A moment for my own welling of emotion. Thank you, Connie. And now I think I am ready, Miss Pruitt. You're certain you can manage these?
Oh, yes, Mr. Price. No problem.
But I shall carry this attaché with the painting, too precious to simply banish it to the neverland of airline baggage. Another project drawn to a close. Of course, there is the magic that happens in post-production, the hoopla of a premiere and so forth. But the real experience, the memorable bits and pieces, that is what lingers for me, and this certainly has been memorable. On this little island in the autumn of 1986, Off the coast of Maine, a glorious and crisp day, a picture postcard in every detail. I see I'm not the first to arrive at the docks for the morning ferry. Expecting it to be the ever-ready Miss Davis, I'm pleasantly surprised to see the quiet poise of Lillian Gish. It's as if nature has taken over as her own personal lighting designer, catching her in an almost heavenly light as she stands alone waiting for the ferry. Behind her is a mountain of luggage. Good morning, Lillian, dear.
Good morning, Vincent. Oh, hello, Connie, dear.
Is this mountain of luggage yours?
No, I travel light. It seems she brought her entire wardrobe and both Oscars.
Ms. Davis, incoming, 12 o'clock.
Happy the filming is over, Miss Davis.
Hats off and hallelujah.
Will you be attending the premiere? I note she is deliberately cutting Lillian from the exchange. Grand and gracious as ever, Lillian does not seem to notice or mind. She instead surveys the horizon, not as if looking for the ferry, but as a monarch would do, taking stock of their kingdom.
What's next for you?
Some time with my daughter.
Good.
And reading some scripts. There's a wonderful young man by the name of Timmy Burton. We've worked on some small projects together in the past few years. I think he would be a joy to work with on a full picture.
Make sure he picks a warmer location, like a soundstage in your own backyard.
Indeed. And for you, anything special on the horizon?
There's an off-Broadway play I've been asked to read, Driving Miss Daisy. It would be the part of a cranky old Southern woman. Think I have it in me?
As if on cue, I noticed Lillian's response to Betty's rather loaded question. She says nothing but the look. I suddenly realized that by mere physical proximity, I have been caught in the crossfire, and as a result, I have been gished. Both women look at me as if I'm quite mad, but I dare not say a word for fear of unleashing the fury of one and waking the smoldering ferocity of the other. Perhaps instead of waiting another 50 years, we could pair up again. Do you think there would be a role for me in your Miss Daisy?
The male lead is an old black chauffeur. I'm not so sure that even you could pull that off. But then again, I wasn't so convinced you could pull off a Russian count.
Oh, but you did just fine, Vincent, dear.
Saved by the bell, as it were. We all turn to see the ferry approach. We watch in eager silence as it gently turns and smoothly meets the dock. No one is on board. It seems as if they've sent this particular boat just for us. Miss Pruitt's father, Connor Pruitt, is at the wheel, and I wave. I offer a hand to Betty as she boards. She pats my hand as she does, letting it linger for a moment without catching my eye, and she disappears inside the shelter of the ferry. Lillian is next. She, too, accepts my hand and steps aboard, taking a moment to wave back at Miss Pruitt and cast her glow of gratitude on me. It is now my turn. I step aboard as they continue to load Miss Davis' luggage, the first leg of my long journey home. I turn to see Miss Pruitt, who is now at the edge of the dock. She is smiling from ear to ear. I must say it is infectious. Youth. And I am thankful, so very thankful. Farewell, Miss Pruitt. You only get one time around. Why waste a minute of this glorious life?
So, welcome to our little talk back that we're having. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm having a little problem with my chat, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to take any questions, but we can certainly do a little, talk ourselves, and then hopefully everybody can listen in. I'm going to introduce the cast. So, Nancy Vanderswan, wait, raise your hand there. Okay, I'm Nancy Ridgway, the director. Sandy Hartman,
Hello.
Jim McIntosh, Caitlin Riley, Rob Rosello, and Sheldon.
Don't forget our Vincent.
Oh, Tim. I'm sorry, Tim. I had my my view.
I believe I have been gished.
You have been gished. Yes, you have. So, just a little bit. I wanted to talk about, sort of how we kind of all did this. And so, as I said in my opening speech, that I talked to Rob about making this into more than just a solo piece. So, Rob, talk a little bit about that.
So when it was written in 2007, and a friend of mine in New York one morning said to me, you look like a young Vincent Price. You should write a play about Vincent Price. And I looked at him, I'm like, are you kidding me? And I looked in the mirror, I'm like, okay, maybe a little. So I began the research, and I was always a fan of horror films, and I knew who Vincent Price was, but I really fell in love with Vincent Price doing this research. So it was originally created as a solo piece, but when Nancy came to me, it was very easy actually to take it apart and break it apart into 10 characters. It took me right around a week to do the initial draft from solo show to 10 character play. And then as the rehearsal process went on over the past 6 weeks, we did some cutting and adjusting and reallocation of lines, and then addition of lines as well to get what you heard tonight.
That's your story, and you're sticking by that.
That's what I'm sticking to.
Okay.
I wanted to also mention the artwork that we picked out. Jim, this was your idea, which I thought was really great. So talk to us a little bit about how we ended up doing that.
Sure. I mean, obviously it's a radio play, and back in the days of radio plays, people sat around a radio, and we're much more visual now. So as we were looking at this and thinking of visions that we could do or visual arts that we could use, Vincent Price was very much into artwork. So we thought it would be a neat idea to incorporate artwork to kind of convey the scenery of what is going on in the show itself. And so that's where we came in with the idea for utilizing artwork. And then Nancy, you did a lot of work on choosing the individual pieces themselves.
Right. I'm not sure that anybody can hear us doing a talkback because I had a glitch. So, I had a glitch during the show. It was still working. The show was still, showing, but right now I do not have a YouTube screen in front of me.
I'm pulling it up right now to see if there's anything.
Okay. She said yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. Because I just didn't, all right. So thank you everybody for understanding. And these are, live theater, technical difficulties happen. Yeah. So Tim.
No, excuse me.
Yeah. Tim, you are our most experienced radio person. Talk to us a little bit about your experience in radio.
Oh, well, I've always had a love for language, and even since I was a teeny little itty bitty kid, the thing that after homework, I would always turn on my AM radio and listen to the DJs play the top 40. And then, which is what all kids did, back in the 60s where I grew up. But you had your little transistor radio that you carried with you. But one thing I kind of did that a lot of my friends didn't do is that when I went to sleep at night, I turned on talk radio, and I would go to sleep listening to people having adults having conversations with each other. And that was really my favorite thing. I loved hearing people use language and express themselves and share ideas and the different personalities. And so I always loved radio. And as I got older, I guess when I was about 12 years old, I started calling these talk shows up in I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I called up a radio station, talk radio station called KGO, which I believe is still there. And then the host of the radio show said, "Hey, well, if you want to come down and visit the radio station, just have my dad come and drive me over the next weekend, and he'll show me around the studio."
Cool.
And so he drove me over to across the Bay Bridge. I lived in the East Bay area into San Francisco, and on Golden Gate Boulevard there was this magical building, and we entered the KGO television and radio studios, and this was also where they taped The Dating Game with Jim Lang. So that's of those of a certain vintage will remember that.
Nice.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, my dear, you're only in your early 20s. I wouldn't expect you to.
You got it.
But anyway, so I was impressed by that, and then he took me down into the bowels of the building, and there was the newsroom, and then there was the control room, and then there was the air studio where you sat down and you put on your headphones and you had a microphone and you took the callers. And to me, this was the holy of holies. And we spent about 4 hours there. My dad was a good sport, because he's giving up his Saturday afternoon to hang out in a radio station. I don't know if he was as thrilled about it as I was, but that was really the beginning of my passion for radio. And as I got into my teens, I had a concurrent passion for theater and for acting as well, but never got rid of the radio bug. And once I got out of high school and went into college, I began taking majors in broadcasting and news, and then I ended up working in radio and just about every kind of job you can think of for the next 30 years plus. So that's how all that happened.
Oh, thank you.
So Nancy, I do have YouTube up. So if anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and type it in, and I can keep it.
Oh, that would be great. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Nancy, if I could, just to further explain the process, once we started rehearsal, this play has never had a reading, another production. It received a lot of recognition back around 2009, as Nancy stated in her intro, but the real work began when we started rehearsal. And I was able to, based on listening to the cast, the characters they were developing, I was able to make adjustments. So I would often say, okay, can we hold? And I'd like to give Sandy another line as Betty Davis, or, I'm going to take this line from Tim and give it to Connie Pruitt instead. And everybody, with the exception of Connie Pruitt, Polly Stimple, everyone played real people. Even Alfred, even though we don't know a lot about who that person was in Vincent Price's life, there was somebody that Carl really raged against and threatened divorce. But otherwise, we were dealing with real people, the director, the leading ladies, Vincent himself. So it was a great process, and it was a very, very collaborative process. And this is the truest sense of the word ensemble, because everyone really was patient, but really excited about seeing this piece really come to life.
Yeah, great.
And it's not often an actor gets a chance to work with a playwright who is willing to be collaborative and takes suggestions. So it's been really great, a privilege for all of us who played the characters.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun.
And I also find it just interesting to see how, Rob was so open to all comments and everything, because I look at it as, this was his baby. And for somebody to come in and say, well, can I change your baby a little bit? And, and Rob really, really listened and just responded very well, very admirably.
Well, I might have broken him in a little bit, because before you all got involved and I read the play, I called him up and I said, I really like it, but it's a lot of words. A lot of words. It's a typical Rosello, word marathon. So we've got to.
You need to love the language, but not too much.
Yeah. So we did a significant amount of editing before then we got into the process, with you guys and stuff like that. Do we have any questions there, Jim?
No, we don't have any questions, but we've got a lot of great comments. And, somebody wrote here, the thing about radio was that it was visual, but in your mind. This was fun. I saw Betty Davis walking down the beach, smoking, etc. Well done by everybody.
Great.
Well, this
terrific.
is, if I could, being the radio guy, if I could jump in here on that one, I'm a big believer in the theater of the mind. And that is certainly the essence of radio, particularly radio drama and radio plays. And I've listened to every radio play that, fortunately, there are recordings that exist from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I believe it still occurs in Great Britain. I believe it's still a popular thing there. But of course,
Very much so.
yeah, television, for better or for worse, and I think for worse, really pushed radio as we knew it, radio theater, out with the advent of television. But but that's very apt and astute of that comment, because radio is such a personal thing. It's one thing to go to a theater and that's an experience in itself, to sit with other people and to be part of that big personality. It's called an audience, and react and the energy moving back and forth between yourself and the actors on stage. But radio is another thing, which is different but equally cool and equally a sensory experience, because it's very personal. It's going into your ear, and you're using your imagination to fill in the gaps and to fill in the visuals. And so it becomes a very personal experience, and more of an intimate one, I think, in some ways than television or film. So
I agree.
It's a lot of fun to do something like this, and I think it's a very powerful medium. I hope it, with the COVID thing and more theater people doing these Zoom broadcasts, I hope it becomes a thing. Vincent Price did radio theater back in the 40s. He was the original Saint before it became a television show.
When I did some research about radio dramas, England definitely has stayed with it. Television took over in America, and radio dramas just went to the side.
Just disappeared. By 1960, they practically did not exist.
Yeah, but in England and in the general UK, they do them. They've been very popular ever since. But one of the things, to your point, Tim, that I concur with is that when I listen to a book and I put on headphones and I'm listening to, somebody speaking to me, that is such a personal experience. I'm listening to their voice and I'm picturing what the story is. And I love that idea. And that's why I decided that it would be great to try to do what we're doing. Maybe, we're doing a little visual presentation along with it, not too much, but I just felt that it added a little something extra. And I think that this, the podcasts, Audible, all of those kinds of things are really just a step after the radio drama. And now I think that people are, going to continue.
I really think what began on Books on Tape, and Vincent Price, he did LPs, he did speaking LPs, back in the 50s and 60s and what have you. And that had a limited market, a limited interest among people. But I think with the ascent of audio books, which were, 20 years ago, we called them books on tape, right? And mostly made for the blind or whatever, and we were still very much into our TVs and movies and videotape and all that type of thing. But I think with the popularity of Audible and audio books and being able to carry these things around effortlessly and to bring them up on your phone and listen to them, the book, and it's evolving from just a reader reading the book. Now these artists, they're calling them voice artists, are interpreting the text of these books and adding voices and accents and acting to them. So they're almost evolving into a type of theater. And I just hope it keeps going, because I think it's great.
Yeah, and Kathleen Platzer has said that audiobooks are exactly like it was to listen to radio back then. Jean Louston has said she once worked at CBS affiliate radio station and loved the CBS Mystery Theater. And
yes, that's right.
Right, that was a good one.
During the 70s, I think. Yeah.
Great.
And
Kathleen Platzer is my mother. Hi, Mom.
Oh,
hey,
hi,
Ma.
Nancy's mom.
And we have, I'm going to go with Nibroing1 says Ireland also has that. So we have a daily radio soap opera called Harbor Hotel, a 15-minute play every day.
That's Kim O'Byrne.
Ah, okay.
Faith and Begorra.
Kathleen says, hi, sweetie. Just we also have, somebody signed in as Rob on the line. says he wants to know where Connie Pruitt learned Russian.
That's not me, but
No, that's not you.
It's from the same school that Annabella De Matteo learned Italian.
Italian, yeah.
so fun fact, somebody did ask me, a theater friend of all of ours, Danny Foley, who listened to it Monday night, said, I kept waiting for Connie to speak a little bit of Russian. And
Yeah, sure.
I said to her, all the Italian Caitlin had to learn for another show that I had written called A Song I Forgot to Sing. I said, I spared her the Russian in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thought about it, but you know.
Next
Well,
time.
I think we're going to wrap it up, and I just want to tell our viewing audience again, thank you so much for listening in. We have our next show coming up, which is a presentation of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, and that is on October 30th and 31st. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be a fun Halloween. We are putting together, I think, a very interesting presentation of it. So we hope to see you then. All righty. So
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
and
good night,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Mom.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night, Tomboy. What was it?